Okay, there we go. Hi, folks. But you thought I wasn't going to join you tonight, huh? Just a couple of last minute details here. It didn't go quite as smoothly as I'd hoped. Let's see if we can get a little better light on this situation. Wow, I am backlit at the moment. Maybe if I slouch or move the light over here, that's a little better, huh? Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another hour of good nature. Um, yeah, so it's been kind of a busy week. We are approaching, we're heading towards the downward side of the bell curve that is the periodical cicada emergence, which means time is ticking if you want to go see them and you haven't yet. There's still a lot um, happening in Wheaton and Glen Ellen, which are pretty close. If you're local, and Rachel, I know you said you were going to tune in tonight. The neighborhood that's just north, and by local, I'm talking about St. Charles, the neighborhood that is just north of Hunt Club Park in St. Charles. It's just maybe a half mile or so east of Delnor Woods Park. I couldn't believe I drove by there the other day on the way to a friend's house, and the neighborhood was buzzing. So we do have small localized emergences around here. Again, there's probably, it sounded like thousands there. Not like the millions they have to the east, but if you're pressed for time and you want to go check it out, you could hear them there. I hear it's supposed to be back up in the 90s again as we get later on in the week. That might flush out one more wave, but we are, as I said, on the downward slope of what we are seeing with this year's 17 years in the making party. I did have some show and tell items from my trip to Wheaton last week. Let's start here. Never leave home without a Ziploc or a film canister or a coffee can or something to carry home treasures. So in here, it's mostly shed skins. There's a couple different sizes in here because we have in this area a couple different species of cicada. We've got the Cassins 17-year and then the Linnaeus 17-year, and you can kind of see the difference here. If I hold these two up, see how this one, let me get a better grip on this one. I tell you, manual dexterity is not my thing. Okay, there's the smaller one. Put that under the light. And here's the bigger one. It's so there's a difference in the size, there's a difference in the markings of these two. The Linnaeus has some orange stripes on its abdomen. The Cassin's cicada tends to be all black. I think I might have some representatives here. By the way, if you do head east or to a neighborhood where there's a lot of cicadas and you do pick up some souvenirs, and then you leave them in your car by accident, and then you get in your car and you wonder what the smell is. It is, there is a lot of protein in these little bodies. And yeah, you will know that you are not alone in your car. Let's see. I want to show you here. Oh, here he is. So, you know, there's the I guess you'd call it overcrowding situation that has been occurring in a number of suburbs where the cicadas climb out. I think we talked a little bit about that last week, and their wings are deformed because they didn't have enough space to spread out. Another thing, I don't know if this is a function of overcrowding or maybe just bad timing or bad location, but I saw a lot of cicadas that look like this. This little one did not survive the emergent process from, so it's what I'm holding onto with my hand is the exoskeleton that it lived in underneath the soil. And what we see coming out on the top here is the cicada that wasn't. It came part way out. Maybe it was too dry in the location where it was. We have had pretty regular bouts of rain, but wrong place, wrong time could spell disaster for these guys, which is really a shame. It really, it survived for 17 years, so it's not like it had a short life, but just when it when it was go time, it didn't. So there were quite a few of these I found laying around, and then there were some like this, and I don't know, this was dead when I found it, so I don't know if something ate it. I didn't see any signs of that Massospora fungus that attacks cicadas, 17-year cicadas specifically, or periodical cicadas specifically. But can you see how this one is completely missing an abdomen? It's probably going to be really hard to see because it's a dark insect and the lighting here isn't great. But there you go. It is hollow. You see how the body is hollow? It does give us a pretty good view here of what we call the tymbals, the males. See if I can hold that. Oh yeah, that works pretty good. See on either side there's a chamber. Nope. It's kind of that light that's reflecting there on the one side, and then the other side. Those are the tymbals. Those are the sound making organs, the flexible ribs that the male uses to make its sound. So even amongst the, I guess you'd call it the wreckage, the parts that are left behind, there's still some cool things to see. If you can't make it to an area where they're still calling right now, but you can make it in a week or two, I guarantee there will be plenty of things for you to see. Now, when I was in Wheaton last Thursday, and Thursday in this area was really, really windy. Boy, I'm just getting, oh, hey, look at that. I'll just scrunch down. So the wind was blowing and it was knocking a lot of little branches off of the trees, whether there were cicadas or not. There were branches that were twigs that were snapping off, but there were a lot of branches that I picked up that had, can you see that? Those are the slits that the female cicadas make. This branch, it was from a maple tree. It was probably a Norway maple, because that's what's growing on the block where my parents' house is. And a lot of times the female cicadas, they're aiming for the end, the tender new growth at the end of a branch. And I don't know if on this tree, it almost looks like there were a couple of attempts to slice into it, but this female was not successful. So she moved down. This is actually pretty tough wood here, but you can see there were eggs deposited here. Whoa, here. And then also up higher, up here. So as we got out closer to the branch, she put some more in. We do have some footage we're going to watch this evening of a cicada depositing eggs, but I wanted to show you this while it was still somewhat light out so you could see those marks. So this is what people are so concerned about when they're talking about the flagging that occurs when there's dieback at the ends of branches. This is what they're talking about, because the cuts the females make cause the an interruption in the fluids that go back and forth inside of a twig. And in the case of a windy day, not only could the branch just, you know, start to dry out, and this did dry out a lot more since I brought it home. It was pretty supple when I found it in the street. I picked up probably 6 or 8 twigs, and then I called my brother and I said, "There's, you know, cicada eggs falling, the branches loaded with cicada eggs falling out of the tree." I have the kids go out, so my niece and nephew went out and they filled up the whole lawn waste bag with these twigs. Not exactly sure what we're gonna do with them. We might spread them around his yard, might spread them around in a totally new spot. We'll have to see. I feel a little bit better, you know, if we are gonna try introducing cicadas in a new area. I feel a little bit better about doing it with eggs as opposed to live organisms that might be harboring some kind of, you know, bacteria or something that might be introduced into this area. But again, these insects, their survival strategy revolves around huge numbers, and even a whole lawn waste bag full of twigs probably isn't going to introduce, even if all the eggs hatch, it probably wouldn't be enough to create a viable population in 17 years. But I did want to keep an eye. I'm going to put these up in an aquarium with some damp, like maybe some coconut coir substrate, something that can hold a little moisture, so that these eggs have a chance anyway of hatching. I would love to be able to see the eggs and take some pictures of the little bambinos in 6 to 10 weeks. So super cool things still to be seen, even as the cicada emergence is dying down. Another thing I wanted to show you, and you can kind of see behind me here. Can you see the blossoms that are in the yard? It is once again elderflower season. So the last couple years I've been experimenting with elderflower cordial, and my elderflower sister Melinda, she had sent me a text today. She said, "Did you ever make elderflower champagne?" I haven't. It actually sounds like it's a little bit easier to make than elderflower cordial. And it, instead of a strong and let's see, what do I want to say? Doesn't have a lot of alcohol in it. It's not quite as alcohol. Well, not that champagne has a ton of alcohol in it anyway, but this doesn't have a lot in it. Yet it relies on the natural yeast. So I did go down and pick an elderflower. I was surprised when I went over there to pick this, how many of these flowers have already started to turn into the berries, which will follow. Now, I do have a recipe too for an elderberry. I think it's called a tincture. It's super simple. We don't even have to look. I was going to show you the website for the elderflower champagne. Elderflower tincture or elderberry tincture. You fill a gallon jug halfway full with elderberries, and then you top it off with vodka and you let it sit for, I don't know, 6 weeks or so. All the good things. There's a lot of immune boosting properties in elderberries that infuses into that alcohol. You strain the berries out, and you've got a little health tonic that'll get you through the cold weather months. All right, you know, while we're talking about elderflower, I'm gonna do a screen share so we can take a look at the recipes for that, and for the champagne as well as the cordial. Melinda had sent me a link. I am screen sharing. Let's see. I don't want this one though. I want this one. we're gonna go here. This is actually a UK site called Tin and Time, and it's managed by a woman whose name is Chocolate. Now, maybe you say it in a, fancier way than that, but of course, my chocolate brain, my brain who's attuned to that word, is interpreting her as the chocolate lady. Well, she has this recipe here that's really pretty simple. It's tinandtime.uk is the website. And she, is so often as these recipe websites do, she goes into a lot of detail, a lot of background about the end product. Little caution about some of the toxic parts of the plant, which we're fine. There's nothing to worry about here with the elderflowers. But you soak them. Well, I'll just kind of scroll through the actual recipe is down here. Where did it go? There we go. So she recommends putting it in a glass bottle with a screw-on lid. When I've made similar stuff like this, I found those bottles. I know them as Grolsch beer bottles, but they're the bottles with the metal bail and the little gasket top that you wrench down, and it seals really well. It's also pretty easy to uncork or open up, but it holds the fizz in nicely on these. But yeah, it's just water, sugar, and then your acids, some lemon and some cider vinegar, and only 4 elderflowers, heads of elderflower, which is a lot fewer than what you need if you're going to make elderflower cordial. So check out this recipe if you are so inclined, but don't wait too long because the flowers are turning into berries even as we speak. Same website also has a recipe for elderflower cordial. So we've got the champagne on the one page, we've got the cordial on another page, and they're both delightfully refreshing for these hot summer days we have ahead. All right, you know what? I'm going to X out of these. I just looked at the time. I started late and now it's already 8:25. We do have several photos that I wanted to share. So we're just going to click over here and go up to the top, and we're going to start with what we've got going on at the Fox River. These flowers, these lily pads, those are actual water lilies. If we look, we've got some blooming, which we don't often see. These are, it's called the fragrant white water lily, and it is native. We get a lot of questions though about this plant because it grows so prolifically in some areas. The area, again, if you're local, you can picture this, between Boy Scout Island and Route 31, that whole little inlet is just absolutely choked with these plants. We actually had a call a few years ago about them because they're so crowded in there. They look a little ratty as the season goes on, and there's not very many of them that are blooming. So the gist of the calls was, one is a park district going to do something about them, and clearly they must be invasive because there are so many. Well, I don't know exactly how they got started. I would imagine we've always had some in the area, but this is a plant that likes to grow where uh, the, it has acidic conditions. And when you think about the Fox River Valley and the Tri-Cities, we have a lot of exposed bedrock, which is dolomite, a sedimentary rock, um, that lends minerals to our water, and our water tends to be alkaline. So acidic conditions aren't all that common around here. Um, where we tend to see acidic conditions is where we have a lot of silt that's backed up. And where do we have a lot of silt that's backed up? Well, in the impoundments behind our dams. So there's um, that inlet there by Boy Scout Island that has been um, getting shallower and shallower for a number of years as more and more silt gets pushed in there. Um, and it's providing the perfect conditions for this to grow. And now these plants are moving out and finding other areas to their liking. So I suspect as we go through summer, that's what happened last year. This area above the dam got more and more of these fragrant white water lilies. I was interested to see, though, that there are some that are blooming. It is a really pretty flower. Now, this being where it is, if we look back here one more time. So they've, in the last year or two, the city has put these fences up because our river walk is getting a little worse for wear. So it's not exactly easy to go and sniff one of these. And I haven't made my way over to Boy Scout Island this summer. I did try the last couple summers to see if there was one close enough to sniff, and there wasn't. But I am a little curious as to just what the fragrance is like, and if we're able to get an answer to that, you guys know you will be the first to know. But there are a few blooming, and maybe we'll see some more as time goes on. Now this is from Susie. This is a really cool little spin on what we normally see in terms of river bugs. This is a type of caddisfly called a longhorn caddisfly. Now, the usual caddis that we see, and we see several different types as the season goes on. They tend to emerge in large groups, kind of like cicadas, only it's usually on an annual basis as opposed to 17 years. Usually, it's always 1 to 2 years for these guys. They have larvae that live in the water, they pupate, and then they come out in a big group. Their survival strategy is the same as cicadas in that they come out in such great numbers, they overwhelm the birds and other animals that might want to eat them. And there will always be some caddisflies that survive to reproduce and keep the species going. This one, look at the antennae on this. This is an impressive looking creature. Not terribly large, but these long antennae gives it the name longhorn caddis. And they come out, do the same thing. They're looking to mate, lay some eggs, and die. I would imagine that they have also spent a similar amount of time in the water, about a year, from the time the eggs are laid till the time that the adults emerge. At this point, I don't know that they really feed at all. I think it is just a get out of the water, go on a date, lay some eggs, and you're done. So keep your eyes open. I think this was last week that Susie spotted these. So they probably won't be around too much longer, but it was, I thought, a pretty cool variation on the what we think of as the usual small brown moth-like caddisflies. And this was funny too. Rachel, you sent me this picture. So at the at Hickory Knolls at our nature center, we have a lot of dedicated students of our local ecology, and some of them are pretty interested in our local herpetofauna, which is our reptiles and our amphibians. And this is a hand of Lauren, who is one of our naturalist educators, and she this was it surprised me for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't know that a male toad would just hop on a thumb like that, thinking it's a female toad. But two, I thought that toads were pretty much done with their courtship and mating for this year. But they are fond of warm weather, and we've also had quite a bit of rain, so there's been a lot of opportunities. Toads aren't particularly fussy when it comes to places to breed. If there's a little bit of water, even if it's just a puddle, they might be inclined to give it a go. But here, the I guess you call it the technical word for a male and a female toad coupling is called amplexus. And here we can kind of see what goes on, even though there's no female toad there, it's just Lauren's thumb. But the male, he's got these uh, beefy forelimbs here. They grasp the female. Sometimes there's more than one male that jumps on. In fact, sometimes a female American toad does not survive the mating season because there's so many males that are interested in her. But the fertilization that occurs is actually external. She releases the eggs, and the male fertilizes them as they leave her body. So I guess I don't know exactly how I got involved was the text that Rachel forwarded me that said, "Hey, how do you get how do you get a toad to let go when he's fallen in love with your thumb?" So he did. Lauren was able to overpower those powerful forelimbs and get him back in the water, back to where he might be able to find a lady toad that was more receptive to his advances. So apparently the toads, it is, we are coming up now on the middle of June, and they are more of an earlier, in the sequence of amphibian matings. They tend to be more in the earlier part of May, but hey, when the conditions are right, and if there's a cute thumb that comes along, I guess, why not? Huh? Um, back out here. Let's go on. Okay, so this, and I don't know if, let me see if I can get the sound to play on this. So are you guys hearing any sound? I can't remember if I um, click the sound sharing part on the screen share tonight, but this is a female periodical cicada, and she is depositing eggs. It was super windy, so I had a hold of the branch so it wasn't flopping all over the place. But here we can see her ovipositor right here, and we can see her abdomen pumping. And I would imagine that those pumps, those flexes that she's doing are sending eggs into the slit that she's created. Now, all that hissing and rattling and that weird echo in the background, those are the two calls. Those are the two species that are calling. The closer up clicks are from the Cassin cicada, and then the echo, what sounds like an echo in the background, that is the Linnaeus, the two-toned. That was a car, but you can hear Pharaoh in the background. So this was kind of fun. I was supposed to be packing some things and cleaning up, getting our parents' house ready to be shown. It's being sold, and I couldn't make my way into the house between all the cicadas that were on the front step, all the dead bodies that I had to pick up and analyze and sweep and put in a bag, and then the shed skins. There was a lot going on there last Thursday morning. Um, Lots of super cool things. I was surprised too, at how well they were able to hold on despite that wind. My hat flew off a couple of times because of the winds, but boy, these cicadas, they determined to hang on. All right. Here. Um, so when I got home, um, let's see, let's see. So Thursday morning, I did what I had to do in Wheaton. I came back home. I thought, you know what? It's lunchtime. I have just enough time to get the grass mowed before I got to go back to work. And so I was in the garage. The way my garage is set up, there's a radio that comes on when I turn the light on. Well, the radio is old. It's an old boombox, and it can be sort of staticky sometimes as the station drifts in and out. Well, this static sounded a little bit different than it usually did. So I turned the radio down, and I realized the static was not coming from the radio, it was coming from my car. Now, it was a pretty warm day. It had the windows down in the car. So I thought, oh gosh, when I picked up those branches with the cicada eggs on them, maybe I accidentally picked up a cicada too, and it's chirping. So I looked all through the inside of the car and I couldn't find it. And then I heard the staticky chirping again, and I realized it was somewhere in the garage. Well, it was on the windshield wiper. This cicada rode all the way from Wheaton to St. Charles, and then started to fuss at me about it. It wasn't making the full Cassin cicada call, but it was kind of like, just like little, if you've ever picked up a cicada and it's buzzed at you, it was that kind of a warning sound that it was making. So I'm immediately racked with guilt because, again, 17 years underground, this guy's got 2 weeks to pass his genes along for the next 17-year cycle. What does he do? He ends up in St. Charles. Well, luckily, Sarah, you came to the rescue. Sarah was planning to go to Wheaton the next day on Friday. So we engineered a little handoff. The cicada was released back at Adams Park, a lovely setting in downtown Wheaton, and hopefully he lived happily ever after. So I'm much obliged to you, Sarah, for being the cicada taxi. I know this little guy was grateful, and I know I am too. Now, remember, I don't know, a week or two ago, we talked about sidewalk ants, pavement ants, and how they have these little wars, especially this time of year. Well, these are not warring ants. These are all the same. They appear to be an ant colony on the move. And even though it looks like they're just kind of going all willy-nilly, their general direction was moving from the left to the right. This is what happened. This is what confronted me after I got the cicada off of the windshield wiper and I was finally ready to mow the grass. I pushed the mower out and I can't get across the driveway because these ants are moving. On the screen here, it's from left to right. In real life, it was from north to south. So I don't know what caused them to relocate. I wish I knew more about ant behavior, and I could not figure out what kind of ants these were, even though I got Dr. Eleanor's book out. I'm gonna have to do a little more digging. They're moving so quickly. I couldn't get a good look at them, or even a good picture. I did isolate this one, but I don't know what we're looking at here. It's, they're reddish, and there was a bunch of them. They're not teeny tiny. They're much larger than the pavement ants. I would say twice as big. And I do know, like, sometimes ants will go on a raid. They'll overpower another ant colony. In fact, there was a smaller ant there in the corner. I don't know what was going on. but I had to wait. This whole procession was over in about 5 minutes. I didn't want to run the lawnmower over the colony as it was moving, but just that quickly it was done. And I was able to finally get the grass mowed. But if I can find out anything else about these ants and what they were up to, we'll talk about it another week. This was just a little something that jumped out at me because we've talked about poison ivy a couple of times now these last few weeks. It's doing very, very well, thriving, in fact. But this is not poison ivy. It's a plant that's commonly mistaken for it. It starts off with leaves of 3. As it matures, sometimes it will get a few more leaves on its leaflets. But this is box elder, not poison ivy. And we can tell it's box elder because the leaflets are growing opposite each other. In poison ivy, the leaflets grow alternately. But box elder, being a maple, the maple growth habit is to grow opposite. This plant is totally harmless. And you can even tap it in the springtime and gather the sap and do a whole lot of boiling and end up with some box elder syrup if you're so inclined. But it's something, especially when growing from a seed. Now this was a pretty good size little tree, with the branch was poking out into a trail I was on. But it can fool you, especially when it's small and it's just starting to grow. But you can always tell by the way, and don't go by the leaflets being opposite each other when there's leaves of 3 and 2 of them are opposite, because that happens. That's the way poison ivy does grow. But look at where the leaflet joins the main stem here and see how they're opposite each other, not alternating, there's not a space between them. That's how you can tell it's poison ivy. So don't be fooled either way, whether it's poison ivy or box elder. That's your tip for tonight. And this was a nice little surprise as well. It's also ebony jewel wing season. This is a damselfly. We were talking about this today. We were having a little discussion about the health of the Fox River. And I said, I'm always surprised when I go dipping in the water, like around Potawatomi, where the paddle wheel boats dock, or back by the native plant area. I'll 2 or 3 times a summer, I'll just kind of poke around there just to, see what's happening. And I always find an abundance of damselfly nymphs. These guys, damselflies and dragonflies, they, like our caddisflies, they start off in the water. They're predators. They feed on other insects in the water, and then they molt their skin. They do not go through a pupation stage. They don't have a larvae. They just have their immature form is called a nymph. So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then its last molt, it comes out and it has wings. The thing about the Fox River damselflies is that there's not a whole lot of diversity. We tend to see maybe 2 or 3 different kinds. They like the slow moving, semi-stagnant water of the main stem of the fox. But every once in a while you get out, and this was actually along Tyler Creek in Elgin, but we also see these ebony jewel wings over on Fearson Creek at Leroy Oaks. You start to see more diversity as your streams have more diversities of habitat, when there's riffles, when there's pools, when there's runs where the water is just kind of flowing. There's that diversity of aquatic habitat produces a diversity of aquatic life. And it's always a joy when you can see these ebony jewel wing damselflies. keep an eye out for them. When you see them, that's a clue that you are in a healthy and diverse aquatic habitat. Um, and then this is a little nod to our friends up in Elgin. Look at the milkweed here. This is just growing in a parking lot. You can see it's not terribly glamorous. Did I put both photos in? Yeah, here you see the cars over here to the left. This isn't a showplace garden. Um, it's not going to win any awards, but look at it doing the job it needs to get the food there for the monarchs, for the milkweed beetles, for the milkweed bugs. The milkweed tussock moths. There's a lot of common milkweed growing here, and in a mass planting like this, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? This is a plant a lot of people malign as a weed. It's part of the name, milkweed, and it is the common milkweed. So it is probably one of the more prolific forms of milkweed too. But it this is growing near, I'm going to forget the name of the street. Was it Riverside? It's where the Elgin farmers market is, but they're just calling it the Elgin market now because it's not just farmers. They've got a lot of different booths there. In fact, the Greater Cane Wild Ones chapter has a booth there every Friday as well. They're giving out free milkweed plants as well as advice on how to grow natives in your yard. So if you're in Elgin, this is on Friday afternoons that this airs. It goes till 8 p.m. There's a lot of cool food trucks, usually some music playing. It's a good time. And you can check out the milkweed that's growing there too while you're there. So it's June, which means it's time for May apples. This is a plant, I believe we talked about it back when we were going through our spring wildflowers, what was blooming. This is a plant that for several years will send up just a single stem with one broad leaf like we see here on the left. But when it's, oh gosh, I forget if it's like 5, 6, 7 years old, something in that range, the plant has enough rootstock to be able to support sending up a stem with 2 leaves and a flower. And then when that flower gets pollinated, it turns into this little fruit here. This one isn't quite mature yet. They do look a lot like a Granny Smith apple when they're ready to be picked or to be eaten. This one looks more like an olive, and a unripe olive at that, but it's getting there. May apples, that it is a plant. You got to know what you're doing, and I will be the first to admit I don't know exactly when the peak ripeness is. My understanding is that if you're too soon, you're going to end up with a bellyache if you pick one and try to eat it. I don't know about eating these things raw, but I do know a couple people have forwarded me recipes that they've used to make mayapple jelly with. That's where I've heard about this fruit. The most common use for it. I also know that a lot of wildlife will eat it too, and maybe they have better sense when it comes to time to pick it. They deer, I know, is our deer, and also our chipmunks and our squirrels are consumers of the mayapple fruits. Oh, keep an eye out for that. Name is a little deceiving because it's June, but it did bloom in May. So the flower comes out in May, the fruit comes out in June. Shortly after that, in fact, you can tell here on the foliage, they start to get these yellow spots. They get more yellow and more brown. And then usually as we get into August, that foliage and usually the fruit too is completely gone. And we don't see them again until next spring. Another view from a little farther away. And it is also serviceberry season. I was doing a program at the homestead today, and a woman brought a little branch of these up, and she wanted to know if they were a type of wild cherry. And they're not. They're a local Amelanchier, I believe, is the um, genus name. I just discovered these last year. They're a really tasty little berry. I actually picked some. Uh, some of you know I have Arthur the box turtle, and for the 40 some years that we've been together, I've always picked mulberries for him at this time of year. And when I heard about these service berries, I tried them, thought they were delicious. I brought a bunch home for him. He didn't like them. I don't know if they're too sweet. He wouldn't eat them. So that means more for me. The woman at the homestead said this morning that there's a woman that she regularly eats breakfast with there who goes and picks these. There's a big serviceberry bush out in the courtyard at the homestead town center building, and she'll go out and pick those, and then she eats them on her cereal and on her yogurt. Um, to pick them, this deep purple one, that's about where you want them to be. When they're still kind of red like this, they're not quite done yet. They're a little too hard, and they're pretty tart. But once they ripen into this deep purple color, they're pretty darn tasty. Um, we're going to have one more show and tell before we're done tonight. It just fell off the lamp. We'll get to that in just a second. I met a little friend at the Wild Ones Garden Walk this past Saturday. This was out at the Mikowski residence out in Elburn. They've done wonderful things with their woods that, by the way, after they moved to their where they actually their house is a barn that was taken down as Randall Road was being developed. There was a barn that was going to be yeah, it was in the way. So they actually bought the wood and had the barn reconstructed on this wooded property out in Elburn. Well, one day there's a little knock on the door, and who should it be but Dick Young? He was so enamored of their property that he wanted to walk it, and he took them out for a walk with them. All kinds of cool things growing in the woods at the Mikowski's house. And there's also spiders. This is a female wolf spider. I don't know. Tigrosa pardosa, that Lycosidae is the family of wolf spiders. I want to say this is a tigrosa, but I didn't write it down. I started to look it up earlier. No, I didn't put a description in. But what I thought was interesting was one, the size. This spider was tromping through the grass amidst probably 15, 20 people on the garden walk, and was likely trying to get to a place of safety. I was trying to get her to slow down so I could get a decent picture. And she wasn't having any of it. She wanted to get out of there. Look at her. We were kind of having a little face off here, but it shows you can kind of get a sense of her size. I would say from the tip of her front legs to the tip of her back legs, we're looking at over 2 inches. This was an impressive spider. If we zoom in on her face here, you can see the eyes. This is a spider that hunts visually. They don't spin webs. So there's some pretty big eyes geared for picking up motion. And there was also there's no eggs attached back here, and there's no babies riding on her back. So she might, and I'm saying I did not see any reproductive parts up here on the front of the spider. So I'm wondering if maybe she's in between broods. Maybe she's already had one and is going to be working on another. The because I have had a couple people send me videos of spiders they've seen that are already carrying young on their backs. Oops. So anyway, there's it was a garden walk, but what do I take pictures of? Not the garden, the spiders. This, I believe this is a slime mold. I wasn't able to really, this is two different, I'm pretty sure it's the same species, but it was growing in two different places. It looked a lot like somebody had spit their gum out and just, spread it on the logs. I would imagine these guys are some kind of fungus gnats that were swarming on here. They actually look kind of like little midges, but there's something very much of interest to them, and they're no doubt helping that what I believe to be a slime mold reproduce. And then this was this was the same day. This was last Saturday. This was after the garden walk. There was a plant rescue led by Sarah and some of the gardeners from the Plain Dirt Gardeners Club down in Batavia. This is over at Carriage Oaks, which is on 14th Street in St. Charles. They are going to have some renovations done to the entryway of their building, and there's a lot of plants that are going to get trampled. So Sarah led the charge to get those plants relocated. In fact, there's still more if anybody's interested. There's iris, there's black-eyed Susans, there's some anemones. Shoot me an email. I could connect you with this woman here whose name is Nancy. She's kind of the informal caretaker of those gardens. But what we're looking at is Nancy looking at a woman named Diane, who's looking at something that's down there in the distance. And if we get closer, we see it's a pair of sandhill cranes. These and it was funny. So Diane, who's also a resident there at Carriage Oak, she is a crane aficionado. She kind of speaks crane, and she was talking to them. She was doing the sound, and I swear they were not at all upset by her presence. They seemed to be kind of listening to her as she was making those sounds. What I noticed is the extremely dark color of their feathers. The natural color of a sandhill crane's plumage is this light gray, but during the breeding season, they will take mud and run it through their feathers, and it stains the feathers. Sometimes it's sort of a tan color, sometimes it's a rusty brown, but this really looks like some of the mud we have in our wetlands around here, this dark color. What we didn't see are any babies. So whether this is a young couple and they have not yet reproduced, or whether this is a couple that had something not so good happen to their family, I don't know. But they were certainly at ease hanging out here. And yes, that is corn. We still have an in-town cornfield there at 14th Street and 38 in St. Charles. I have a feeling they might have helped themselves to some of the tender shoots over here. That's something sandhill cranes are known for. It's something that makes them not so good of friends with our farmers. There can be, if there's a lot of cranes, it can actually produce quite a bit of loss in a field. But we didn't see them eating any corn at all. They just were kind of relaxing, grooming, hanging out, talking to Diane. Keep your eyes open for these. This is the white-marked tussock moth. I've gotten several inquiries about them in the last week. They're this is the caterpillar, and this is the moth. You can see the white marks. The caterpillars, if they are present in large numbers, they can eat a lot of leaves. They're not terribly fussy about the plants that they eat. There's something like 140 different species, mostly woody plants that they will feed on, and they will skeletonize the leaves. So if there's a lot of these caterpillars around, yes, you can see damage, but it's not, they don't typically occur in the numbers we see with, say, the gypsy/spongy moths. And I've always ever found them in like ones or twos, but we had a few people inquiring about them. So keep your eyes open. They are out and about. They've got a pretty good covering of hair on their bodies. They don't have any venom associated with them, but some people do experience an irritation from the hairs because they are meant to come off and they can sometimes get stuck in your skin. But red on the head, these white tufts here come across on the back. There's some more red dots after they pupate. This is the moth that they look like. Some impressive antennae here, huh? Nice looking. But the yeah, white marked tussock moth caterpillars are out now. That means the moths will be out later this summer. And Miss Bonnie, you had sent us, we've talked about this this deer in the past. This is Willow. Willow appeared in one of the pastures out on Bonnie's property, which is out in Kendall County. And the pastures were there for goats, and one day Bonnie walked by, and who should be there but a deer? Turns out it was a deer that had take a little walkabout from another farm where she was living as a captive deer. And it seems quite happy living as a captive deer because now she's Bonnie. The other owner didn't really want her back, so now she lives at Bonnie's, and she has gentleman callers every fall and every spring. Look what she is. She has little fun. She's had two this year. So there's twins. One is larger than the other one. Do we have, let's see, did I load that one? Yep. So she'll come out and she'll nurse them. And then they'll kind of disappear in amongst the tall grasses of the pasture. But a little blessed event occurring there. I guess the fence is not a barrier when there's a determined buck in the area, but little Willow, I think this is this, can't remember if this is round 2 or round 3 of fawns there in the in the goat pasture with the captive deer, this Willow. And then I wanted to wrap up with this just came, I just got a text right before we signed on tonight. This is I don't know if you recognize how good you are at identifying baby birds, but this is a cute as a button little baby nighthawk. It's right now at Anderson Humane, which is one of a couple wildlife rehab places we have here in the area, but it is being transferred tomorrow to Willowbrook Wildlife in Glen Ellen. That's at this point, that's all I know. Other than that, it's feeding well. These are chicks that you probably are familiar with the adult nighthawks, which sail above our downtown areas. They make a sound that sounds just like, to my ear anyway, it sounds just like a woodcock. Meh, meh. And so they forage on insects where there's lighting, which oftentimes is above our downtown area. Sometimes it's above our parking lots too. I don't know the story of this. The person who texted said she would let me know tomorrow where it came from and where it's going. Hopefully it will be returned back once it is able to, but I don't know. We don't often see nighthawk rescues, so I'm sure there's a good story. I've always heard that the nighthawks in downtown St. Charles nest on the roofs of the buildings in town. That's what they like. They like ledges, flat areas, and gravel roofs are filling that bill and this man-made habitat that they found. So as I get more information on the nighthawks, I will be sure and let you know. Now, I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to see if it's still here. Yep. And I'm going to see if it will perform for us. A click beetle flew in to the lamp while we were talking here. These are, all right, let see if I can hold this. Boy, before there wasn't enough light and now there's too much. Click beetles, they're known for flipping when they're on their backs. So I'm gonna see, oops, not on its back. Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can get it to click. It makes an audible clicking sound, which I don't think the microphone is going to pick up. I can feel it flicking on my, whoops. Again, manual dexterity, not my thing. Did you see it? I don't know if it was holding, I don't think I had it up high enough, but it did like a backflip off my hand. This is the time of year, if you've got an outside light and you have access to it, if you see a narrow, a slender brown beetle, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I don't think it wants anything to do with me. I think it dove down the crack in the deck. And I don't think any more have showed up. Look by your outside light. If you see a beetle that's about an inch long, maybe a little less, and it's very, got just a very slender, it's shaped kind of like, if you know what wild rice looks kind of like a long grain of wild rice. And you flip them on their backs and then they flip over again. There's a, almost like a, it's that kind of a mechanism in their body, and they can flip themselves over. They're super cool. They're really fun to play with. And I'm bummed I blew that. But maybe we'll have another one when we get together again next week. Before I forget, one more thing. This Saturday, if you are still, if you're looking for plants for your yard, the Master Gardeners are going to be having an open house and a plant sale at the Idea Gardens, which are at the corner of Peck and Route 38. Really cool. Even if you're not looking to buy plants, the Idea Garden is a great place to go to get ideas. All the gardeners there have been through the Master Gardener program, and the displays there are chock full of solutions for problem growing areas, innovative combinations of plants. It's a really cool place. You should check out if you have the chance. With that, let's see, looks like we just got one quick chat to get to. Yes, the common milkweed, it was absolutely heavenly. The smell was just wonderful, and it's just growing there by the side of the parking lot against that cement wall. But good job, Elgin. It's going to do a lot of good things for the monarchs and other insects there. Folks, we started late. We're ending late. Appreciate you hanging in there. Thought I saw the click beetle. Appreciate your time this evening. You have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll be together again next week for another hour of good nature. Hope to see you then.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.